Okay, a call to order. The Rolesville Board of Commissioners, this is a work session, October 17th, 2023. And just appreciate everybody in attendance tonight and everybody watching online. I think we got two items on the agenda. So unless does the board have anything you want to mention before we move into the work session from down that end there? I know Sheila's out of town, I understand, so she's not with us, and Michelle's running late, I think. So we will get started. Everybody good? All right. The first item is Wake County Public School Strategy Plan. Kelly, you going to kick that off?
Sure. My name is on there. Yes, I helped coordinate, and that's really simply all I did with Robin, having the school district come and show and talk about their ongoing strategic planning effort. And so I'm going to introduce the individuals here, and I guess I'm going to let you actually introduce yourselves. My notes were a little deficient on that, but I apologize. But if you want to come up and go ahead, and you can have your time and present to the board.
Absolutely, and thank you. Thank you for having us. Mayor, esteemed Board of Commissioners, it's definitely a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Clinton Robinson. I am the Chief of Staff of Wake County Public Schools. Along with me is Dr. Leanne Alford Keith. She's in charge of strategic planning, and just so that you're aware, we are thought partners. I'm going to call us the dynamic duo for today. And I would like to tell the Board of Commissioners, I was the last principal of Wake Forest Rolesville High School. Okay. And so I used to be the principal there. So this afternoon, this evening.
I think, right?
Say again?
2013, is that the last year of Rolesville, Wake Forest Rolesville?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
so it's been 10 years.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute, but I know things changed once we split the schools up, but it was very worthwhile, and you guys have a beautiful high school that's here now.
Yeah, we
and
do.
So what we want to do this afternoon is introduce our strategic plan, and more importantly, we want it to be really interactive. We don't want it to be a situation where the only thing that we're doing is just giving you the information. But when we think about all the schools that we have within Wake County Public Schools, I don't think we've ever had the opportunity to come out to town meetings in order to provide this information. So we're looking forward to doing this. This is our first stop. And so we definitely thank you for having us. So 37420. And this is what we call our zip code for Wake County Public Schools when it comes to our strategic plan. And what that means is we have 3 priorities, 7 goals, 4 pillars, and 20 aims. And you're going to hear about that this afternoon. So this is a quick video we just want you guys to watch. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Robinson, Chief of Staff, Wake County Public Schools.
And I'm Lindsay Mahaffey. I'm the chair of the Wake County Board of Education. Recently, our board adopted a new strategic plan. This will be our guide for the next 5 years as we educate our students for academic success. And this was done with input from members of the community, our families, our educators, in order to make sure that everyone has buy-in to this work. This framework includes strategic priorities with goals nestled under that, and below that some aims. The 3 strategic priorities are student knowledge and skills, student dispositions and well-being, and operational effectiveness. These priorities are what our staff, parents, and students, as well as others, identified as critical focus areas for work that will move our district forward. We will measure our progress towards each of these goals with metrics that are rooted in excellence and equity. The action steps to achieve each of these goals are our aims.
When we say we involve all community stakeholders, we really did. We had community outreach, we did thought exchange, we had separate sessions and focus groups. So within this strategic plan, you should really see your voices because your voices are captured. Our strategic plan is not a document that is going to sit on a shelf. Rather, it is the guidelines that we have and the expectations that we have to ensure student success. The thing that was established, that was agreed upon amongst all stakeholders, we took a vote and we sent it out to various people, and they wanted the thing to be pathways to excellence and equity.
Strategic priority 1 is student knowledge and skills. This priority is based on students' development in critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, commonly called the 4 C's. In support of these skills, we'll focus on foundational literacy and knowledge in the core subjects of reading and language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, fine arts, digital literacy, financial literacy, and other content areas.
When I think about student knowledge and skills, the biggest thing is making sure that what we're doing for teaching and learning is meeting the needs of every one of our students in our school buildings, so that they're successful when they are able to leave Wake County Public Schools and be able to be successful in whatever career that might be that they choose to do. When I think about what the priority is there, obviously, is refocusing our people on what's most important. When we're looking at the core of our work, it's to make sure that every kid is successful and ready to matriculate and be successful later in life. Every child can learn, and every child can achieve what Wake County wants for our children.
We're able to not only, beyond the music, we're able to work with students on building those skills that they could take with them through high school and through the rest of their lives, whether it's critical thinking skills on how to practice their instrument, how to get better. That's something that they can use in their everyday life. And again, I think that really was what led us to be successful last year was finding something that students could buy into, that they wanted to work at. And it was kind of those skills that we're trying to carry over and keep that ball rolling into the next year. I was having to find ways that I could adapt and make band accessible to all students. And that's something that my administrators last year really supported me with. They made sure that I had the resources and the means to make my class accessible. I think if the resources are applied correctly and if we focus on getting to know students and making those connections, I think that it is absolutely something that's achievable.
Strategic priority 2 is student disposition and well-being. We will prioritize caring for both students and staff as individuals, as well as developing and maintaining positive social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health.
I think that the priority of well-being and disposition is exactly where we need to be. I think that if we're able to prioritize and support students and families on those elements, that all the other things are going to fall into place easier. In order to do a lot of the interventions and things that we're doing, we want them to be present. But we also have to think about what are the elements that are going to help them be present, right? How do we make it a safe, inviting, engaging place that students want to come to and that families feel safe and supported by? I'm a big believer in family engagement, and what that looks like is equitably engaging families. Every family in different situations engages differently. When we're talking about the whole child, well-being physically, emotionally, socially, really working on supporting all of those elements so that they can be functional academically as well.
Some ways my teachers have supported me and other students, particularly since coming back from the pandemic, are socially, academically, and overall they have just been great mentors. I know this type of support has helped more students be successful in school, but it has also helped more students develop positive relationships with others, make good decisions, and gain confidence in themselves. This priority is proof that our district values all students' mental health, which goes hand in hand with their ability to learn and grow.
Strategic priority 3 is operational effectiveness. This priority means establishing systems and structures that allow us to support, recruit, and retain high-quality staff, and to provide timely and consistent service for every student and their families.
I think it's very important to provide services to the families because some families don't have any way to get to school. You know, for me personally, I believe in coming to work because it is very important for kids to go to school. They're our future. In order to keep the good employees who want to stick around, it's got to be a priority. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges in it, but if you enjoy children and like them, it's also very rewarding.
As a working parent or a parent on the go, juggling all the things, I've never once had to worry about being able to know that my kid is safe, my kid is fed, my kid feels comfortable, and as a parent, I have had really great just interactions, to be honest. It's a very human exchange, it's community building, it's relationship building, and most of the time, that's really what it's all about, right? Like, if you have a concern or a grievance, just being heard, just being understood and acknowledged as a human is, I really truly feel that that's half the battle.
One of the things I will share, just to piggyback on what you talked about and discussed, is that how the board has charged us to make sure that we're doing everything that we do to ensure student success. So we must exhaust every effort to ensure all students succeed, which includes differentiation of resources.
That is equity. If every child feels seen and loved and cared for in our building, then they will be more likely to be academically successful, and we'll see them cross that stage.
So this afternoon, when we leave, we want to make sure that there's some understanding of what's in our strategic plan, and we want to be able to take any questions that you may have. So again, 37420, 3 priorities, 7 goals, 4 pillars, and 20 aims. Leanne is going to come up here and she's going to walk you through our mission, our vision, talk a little bit about our core beliefs, and then she will talk just a little bit about the pillars and then a little bit about the aims. And then we want to open it up for questions and answer any questions that you may have, and make sure that we're building a true partnership, working together to positively impact student academic achievement for all students that reside in Rolesville. Dr. Arthur Keith?
Yep, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today, to share with you about our strategic priorities, pillars, and aims, and also to answer your questions, as Dr. Robinson was saying. So the first thing that we have in our strategic plan is our mission. Our mission is that we will provide a relevant and engaging education for all of our students so they can graduate collaborative, creative, critical thinkers, and effective communicators. Our vision is that all students will be prepared to reach their full potential and lead productive lives in a complex and changing world. We had feedback from thousands of stakeholders across Wake County that this was very affirming. This is actually something that we carried over from Vision 2020 from our last strategic plan, but everyone felt that this is still the reason we're here. That's still what we want for our students and the outcome that we seek for them. Then we also have 7 core beliefs. Our first one is that each child is uniquely capable and deserves to be challenged in relevant and rigorous instruction that is meaningful every single day when they come to school. We also expect that every student will learn, grow, and succeed, while we eliminate the ability to predict a student achievement outcomes based on socioeconomic status, race, or ethnicity. We believe that well-supported and highly effective, dedicated principals, teachers, staff are essential to making sure that we can achieve these outcomes that we seek for our students. We also want to sustain best practices while we promote a culture of continuous improvement, risk-taking, and innovation to make sure that we can achieve our goals for student achievement as well as student well-being and agency. Those were new things that we brought into focus in our plan this year, realizing that it's not just about that academic achievement, but it's about the whole child and making sure that they have well-being and agency as well. We also value a diverse community that is inviting, respectful, inclusive, and that's part of why we're here today, is because it's really a goal of ours to build community throughout Wake County, and coming to talk to you all in this part of the county to hear what your questions and concerns are is really important to promoting that 5th core belief. Then we know that all of our residents value a strong public school system and want us to have the resources that we need to achieve this goal. That is our 6th core belief, also something that we know that you all are concerned with as commissioners. And finally, we know that all of our students deserve to learn in optimal, learning environments and have the resources that they need to achieve their goals. So that's our last one, well-maintained facilities and sustainable operational systems. We have a new focus in operational effectiveness in our plan as well. So as we updated the strategic plan, it was really important in all the feedback that we received that we recommit to core academic achievement, family engagement, high quality staff, which were all parts of our last strategic plan, as well as bring a new focus on student well-being, effective operations, as I was saying, and equity. And we set goals around excellence and equity as well. This is how our strategic plan is structured in the framework. This shows those 3 priorities and 4 pillars that Dr. Robinson was telling you about. And we're going going to break down each of those in a little more detail. This also shows with each of those priorities how they have aims and related metrics that are situated under them. We know that in order to achieve some of the very ambitious goals that we have set for ourselves, there are other data points that we will need to be monitoring and sharing with the public as well, and those are captured in our related metrics for each of our priorities. So looking first at priority one is student knowledge and skills. It is looking at our 4 C's as well as our literacies. These are our typical literacies that we think of. Are students able to read? Do students have number literacy? Are they effective in understanding science, social studies, math, language arts, but also in our important 21st century skills. So things like financial literacy as well as digital literacy. Those are components here as well as part of our student knowledge and skills. Then we have 3 goals. The first one is graduation, the second is proficiency, and the third one is growth. Our first goal is an ambitious 98% graduation rate. We had a lot of dialogue with the community about what is the right target to set, and we really felt in all the input that was given is that everyone expects their child to graduate prepared for the world. And so what this 98% graduation rate reflects is that if every student in Wake County who should graduate in 4 years does, that will give us a 98% graduation rate. There are about 2% of students for whom a 4-year path may not be the best choice. This could be because they have needs from an individualized education plan, an IEP, or this could be because they are on a 5-year plan and receiving an associate's degree as part of a 5-year high school program. So with a 98% graduation rate, this would mean every kid who should graduate in 4 years does. Currently, our graduation rate is around 91%, so we have a little ways to go in this 5-year plan, but we definitely want to see that as the outcome for our students. The next one is proficiency. 90% of students will meet or exceed grade level proficiency while we eliminate disparities. And then our last one is growth, because we know that some students are already proficient, and so we need to make sure that those students are growing as well. And so our third goal of growth is that 90% of our schools will exceed the statewide average in how much they grow their students year to year, while 100% of our student subgroups exceed statewide average for growth as well. And so in order to achieve those goals, we have outlined these 7 aims. They are connected to our pillars for priority 1. So our first pillar, high quality instructional staff, you see 3 aims there. Professional learning communities, which is how our teachers work together to co-plan and analyze student data and make sure they're meeting their goals. Then the second one is standards-based rigorous instruction that is culturally responsive and inclusive for all of our students. The third one, analyzing performance data so we can make sure that students are growing, as we were saying with goal 3. The fourth one, eliminating overrepresentation in special education and underrepresentation in advanced coursework. The fifth one, professional learning for our staff. We know it's really important for our staff to grow if our students are going to grow, so we're going to look at what are some new and innovative pathways for their growth as well. And then aims 6 and 7 focus on family and community engagement. Aim 6 is about providing effective information so that all families know how to get involved in their students' learning. And then aim 7 is about empowering families to help us make decisions at the school level so that we know that we're honoring everyone's perspectives and unique needs. So that's priority 1. Priority 2 is about student dispositions and well-being and behavioral health. We have 2 goals there. The first one is attendance. We want to make sure that 95% of students are in attendance 95% of their days. This is a really important new goal for us post-pandemic, as we have seen that attendance is a bigger challenge for us than it was before the pandemic, and we know that if we're going to reach those high outcomes that we have for students academically, we need them present with us at school. So that's going to be a real partnership with families in order to make sure we can reach that attendance goal. And then our fifth one is student well-being, and this is students demonstrating skills that we want to see that make sure that we know that they have strong behavioral health. So these are things like responsible decision-making, social awareness, self-management, and making sure also that when we assess those skills that we don't see any disparities in race there as well. So really important for us to eliminate predictability in these behavioral health outcomes, just as it is in our academic outcomes, because we know that these influence the ultimate academic achievement of our students. And for priority 2, we have 5 aims identified. Again, you'll see them situated within our pillars there. So the first one is high quality instructional programming to make sure that every student has a point of connection at their school. For some schools, this may be something that's curricular, or for some students rather, this may be something that's curricular, but for other students that is an extracurricular activity. And so looking at what are the types of programming that should be in place so that every student feels connected. Then aim 9, making sure that we have an inclusive learning environment for all of our students that promotes a sense of belonging. Aim 10, eliminating overrepresentation in discipline referrals. Aim 11, cultivating that workplace culture. We know that our staff's workplace is our students' learning space, so we need to make sure that we have a positive workplace culture, and that makes us have a positive learning environment for students. And then finally, aim 12, again, focus on family and community engagement, building strong relationships so that we are able to plug into the resources that are in the community that can promote students' behavioral health as well. And then finally, our third priority, which is operational effectiveness. We think of this in 2 dimensions, internal and external. So internally, do we feel like we operate effectively to our staff? Do they feel like they have the resources they need? Are they able to get their questions answered quickly? And then all of the same considerations externally. Do families feel they have the resources that they need? Are they able to get their questions answered quickly? You know, so we have internal and external aspects, and we set the goals in that way as well. So goal 6 looks at that external operational effectiveness. It's based on a family survey that we have. We want 95% of our families to indicate that there are low barriers to engagement and a positive school climate at their school. And then employee 7 is employee experience. We want to make sure all of our employees indicate that they have a positive experience and that they are showing satisfaction and overall wellness also. Now, we don't have a target set for that 7th goal yet, and that is because it is a new goal for us and a new survey. So we'll be launching the survey for all of our staff for the first time this year. In the past, we have only had a survey provided by the state, which went to teachers, but we have 20,000 employees in the district and only about 10,000 of those are teachers. So in the past, we haven't had that type of survey data from about half of our employees. So we'll be launching that this year, seeing where our baseline is, and then setting a goal based on whatever baseline we find this year. Then here are our aims for operational effectiveness. They are connected to our equity-focused practices, high-quality staff, and effective operations pillars, looking at implementing our equity framework as a district, differentiating resource allocation so we can make sure that the people who need the most resources have them and everyone has sufficient support. Aim 15, recruiting, hiring, and developing and retaining a diverse staff. And then aim 16 through 20 are specific to operational effectiveness, focus on metrics of accountability for our internal departments, ensuring that we have high quality infrastructure that is both technology and devices as well as facilities, prioritizing safety upgrades as we know that security is of utmost importance to our district right now. Aim 19 is focused on making sure that we have safe, timely, efficient, and reliable transportation for all families. And then finally, aim 20, looking at how we can promote operational effectiveness while also balancing sustainability. So that is just a quick overview of our plan. I would love to take any questions that you have, and I'll invite Dr. Robinson to answer your questions as well.
And so once again, we definitely want to build a partnership. And as we go through this process, you are our first stop. And please let us know, give us some honest feedback. Is the information beneficial to you? Is there additional information you would rather see? Have you even dealt with or understand the aspects of the strategic plan? We are here to provide you the information, but more importantly, any questions that you have, we can take those back to Superintendent Taylor, who is going to be making his rounds to come to the municipalities as well. But we really want to hear from you. Give us your thoughts, concerns, and consideration, and if there's anything that you would like for us to bring back to provide more information for you. Yes, ma'am.
So I do apologize for missing the beginning of your presentation. I just want to know the graduation rate 95%. I'm not sure if that was an aim or a goal.
98.
98.
98%.
Oh, 98, okay. So, I thought it was 98. So, when you say that you're going to eliminate race and ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic, how are you going to really define how different cultures are faring in terms of graduation? Because that number really makes a difference in the community.
Absolutely. And so when we talk about eliminate the predictability of achievement based upon race or ethnicity, what we're saying is very clear. Every student that enters our school should be graduating college and career ready. And we want to make sure that right now we've created data metrics that will be able to define how subgroups are doing and being able to understand where we need to target additional resources, support, and things of that nature to make sure that everybody gets across the finish line.
And as far as how we monitor the
Yeah.
data, it's based on self-report. So the families give us the demographic information when they enroll in the school, and then we're able to track students' progress from grade level to grade level based on what demographics they self-report.
Okay, and then the attendance goal, I think that was goal 4. How do you really, how is that going to work?
Please say more. Say
Like,
more.
how do you said you're going to try to attain, what, 95%?
Yes.
How do you do that? Because I know when my kids were in school, they went to class, there were students who never showed up. Where does that accountability fall at? And I will say that as when I was mediating in the courts in Raleigh, the parents were held accountable when their children didn't show up. So they would get something served to them, having them come and face, why is your kid not showing up? How do you plan to do it to get 95%?
You want to take that one?
Sure, yes. So the answer is in partnering with families and with our community organizations. So for baseline last year, about 90% of students were in attendance. So we've got to increase it about 5% more. That is also 95% of days, because we know, like, people are going to get sick. People are going to need to travel, right? So it's not 100%, it's 95%. But it would be in partnership with our community organizations and making sure that we have really accurate data and really targeted lists, which all of our schools do that. They look at, okay, these are the students whose attendance that we're concerned about. They contact those families, and then they ask for help from the district and community partners if they need it.
It really doesn't,
And
really doesn't answer it that well.
Say again?
I said, that really doesn't answer it to me that well, because I see you have a plan, so, I respect that. But sometimes you can't even reach the parents because they're working, they have to go to work, kids may leave the house and not show up to school. So I was just wondering how you would reach
No,
that.
and to be honest, that's a great question, and we're grappling with it as well. But the one thing that we can add, we have social workers and many other people that go out into the field in order to provide support for families in order to make sure students get to school. But is it ambitious? Absolutely. We have to do it. We must do it. And we're going to do it, but we understand that it's a heavy lift, but we're willing to put in the work in order to make it happen. So is it concrete sequential? Not necessarily, because there's so many variables that come into play when we're dealing with this situation. But it's a great question.
Well, and
yeah.
it is one of our targets, also one of our metrics that we're looking at is increasing the number of social workers that we have in our district, because we know that they are very important partners in doing things like those home visits that will take that extra step that will get us in connected with those families.
And we're willing to take on commissioner volunteers to help us with the work.
I just feel like there's such a shortage of social workers.
Absolutely.
And I definitely respect the fact that you all have a plan, but very ambitious, for sure.
Right.
And maybe that will help, making sure the students are successful by the time they graduate, because in all honesty, I have spoken to college counselors where students are coming in and they're reading at a 9th grade level, freshmen in college. So that's a big concern. I'm not blaming on the school system. I'm just saying that looking at what you're trying to do, I think that's very important, and that will definitely help.
Absolutely.
Because they're going in not prepared, and, I just appreciate the 2-year school program at Wake Tech, because it's an eye-opener for some parents and students. So, that's it. Thank you.
I appreciate the plan that you have here, and that that it is ambitious.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would have liked to have seen what the numbers are right now. And I appreciated the ones that you provided, because I like numbers, and I like to see, and it would also, in 3 years, show us the growth that has been made.
Okay.
Where are we right now? Starting, I think that would be a great addition to this for us all to look back on as the years go by.
So Commissioner Sneed, I want to make sure that I understand you correctly, because we can tweak things as we move forward. As the presentation was presented, you're saying it would be nice to include the baseline metrics of where we are now, so that in years to come, when we do come back, because hopefully you guys will invite us, we'll be able to provide progress with regards to what has been done, or pitfalls and where we need to make some type of adjustments.
Right, I would,
Okay.
because it would have been nice to know, okay, you provided the number of the 91% graduation right now. What's the proficiency right now, overall for Wake County schools? What is the growth? You know, where are we starting right now to reach those percentages that you're aiming for?
So one of the things that we will do is when we get back to the office, allow us about 96 hours, and we will send everyone here the data metrics that we have, so you would have them and be able to refer back to them based upon the presentation and look at them.
We do have that.
Fair enough?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Please, more questions and more
Yes.
thoughts, concerns, and consideration. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the presentation. Awesome. I have questions and concerns.
Okay.
First question is, are there any lessons learned from your previous strategic plan that you use to enhance your proposed new one?
Absolutely.
Could you share one or two?
Can you turn the cameras on? I don't, there's many things that we learned from the previous plan. Okay, give you an example. And I don't think this is going to incriminate anyone. Our
Okay.
overall goal of our last strategic plan was to graduate 95%.
Yes, sir.
That was the only data metric that we had at that particular time. Now we have data metrics for everything that we're trying to call for. When you look at our goals, 98%, 90%, we have data that we can hold people accountable to what it is that we're trying to achieve. Not only, more importantly, we'll be able to progress monitor that along the way. Our last strategic plan, when we talked about the graduation rate of 95%, we had to wait till the end of the year until the data comes back for us to be able to identify whether or not we're being successful. The way we created the data metrics that align to our goals and our aims and all the things that we're trying to do, we will be able to progress monitor along the way. So that's one of the biggest things that we've learned from the previous strategic plan.
And I'll add a second one.
Absolutely.
Which is really looking at more effective community outreach. And so again, part of why we're here today, but also in collecting feedback from thousands of people last year. We identified in the last plan, like it was mostly written by educators for educators, and we're trying to get beyond that now and have more community involvement. And then also part of that community involvement then told us we really have to focus on those other parts like operational effectiveness and student dispositions and well-being, and it can't only be academic achievement. We really have to think of the whole picture. So, you know, learning that we needed more community outreach led us to have those additional priorities.
And not only community, our board was very involved in creating the strategic plan along with staff.
Awesome.
So our board had a big hand in what you see.
And I like aim number 8 because it says expand access to high-quality instructional programming, enrichment, and co-curricular activities. Would a JRTC program or cadet corps fall into that?
So that's a great question. In order to get a JRTC program in the school, it has to come from Congress. I'm prior military. I believe in JROTC. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for students. But in order to get that within the district or even within the school, there's a lot that has to go into play with that. To be honest, it's a heavy lift because they haven't been improving any. But if you have any contacts that you will be able to give us, that you can help us along the way, we're more than welcome to engage in that work.
I'm glad you asked that, sir.
Absolutely.
Because you said one of my key words is you want a partnership with Rolesville.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have had a meeting with Principal Phelan and his 2 bosses, as well as the approving authority for the Navy JRTC, and he is willing to have a Navy National Defense Cadet Corps at Rolesville High.
All right.
but it just has to be approved by, what did he say?
That's good.
Wake County Public Schools.
Well, you and I need to talk.
Yes, sir, because I have all of the chess pieces ready. I just need the execution phase.
Checkmate.
You do? Okay.
And I'm prior military as well,
Okay.
17 years. So I've been pushing all my military connects to make this vision happen for that high school.
Well, today's a good day.
Today is a great day.
Absolutely. I will give you my information, my number, and we'll exchange, and we'll get the ball rolling. We'll do everything that we can to support it.
Man, I love this meeting.
We'll do everything we can to support it. And you have my word on that. And our superintendent will support it as well, trust me. He believes in it as well. As a matter of fact, his wife is a colonel in the military, so he supports it. Now, is that on camera? Because I want to make sure I keep my job.
No, because it goes in line with AIM 8 and AIM
Yes.
15 of having a diverse staff. So you're talking about having a special for the high school. And you've been a principal. When they split, the curriculum left.
Absolutely.
But now it's been 10 years, and now it's time.
Yes, sir.
So I have the ammunition for you. I just need
We'll work
some
together.
assistance.
We'll partner together. Lockstep.
Yes, sir.
You have my word on that.
So my question, mental health is like a key word that shows up in a lot of people's things. And when I was in school a couple years ago, I don't remember them talking about that as much. But my question about it is, it shows up as a lot of keywords. People have a lot of ideas of how to fix that and everything else. But what do you think are there causes that are causing that? Is it the social media and stuff, everything else? Is it family related? Like, is there things that families and everything else can do to kind of help with that mental health aspect of everything?
So, in fairness to the experts who are in that field, I can give you a thought and opinion, but it's not from the lens of being in it. I can only give you a thought and opinion from the perspective of what we've seen and what we've encountered.
Okay.
And so you're talking about what can families do? Families can come into schools and partner with schools and be engaged in their child's work and get an understanding of what they're doing on a daily basis and be able to ask questions. But more importantly, building that relationship with the principal, administrators, teachers, to ensure that if something goes astray or if you need additional support, they can talk about it and engage in that. If you have anything specific that you're really looking for, I can put you in touch with the people who do that work in student support services and how they go about the mental well-being and things of that nature to ensure student success. I would love to answer it from an informed standpoint, but as a result of that question, I will make sure that when I go back, if anyone asks me that question again, I can give them some sustainable information and specific steps that are being taken. I can talk about it from a speculative standpoint.
Yeah, I was just to see what your thoughts were. And the other one is with communications and stuff. I have one that graduated, 2 in high school, 1 in middle school, with just the different types of software and this and that and like communication, like just trying to make sure it's streamlined. Like everybody's going to use this program, or everybody's going to use this, because it's always like download this new app and we're going to get a hold of you this way, or download this new app and we're going to get a hold of you. So if it's a general thing, because then if it's generalized and then if somebody needs this in a different language or needs this or that, they're not like trying to reset themselves on how this works actually. So
yeah, that's great feedback that we've heard a lot in regards to AIM 7 specifically, is needing to streamline some of the ways that families interact with schools. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know we went through some of it with like the Google this and and it went great. So, and then the last thing I have is, what do you need from the town's perspective, from us, to help with the school?
Let me flip that.
Okay.
What do you need from us to help the town with the engagement in schools? And I think communications with families was a big part of that.
Yeah.
But if you can share with us, what do you need from us? What information would you like me to take back to our superintendent and our board that says, we went out and met with the town of Rolesville, and these are some of the things that they would like to see? I already got JROTC. Chess pieces are in place. We just need Wake County support in order to do that. What can we do for you?
I think the biggest thing is, and it's going to be a general answer, is the connection process. Because, where I moved from, you had your local high school, everybody grew up around there, everybody had that connection. So I think it's the biggest thing is we're missing the connection between the high school and the community that it serves. And I think that's just the biggest thing, is trying to work with that connection. I feel like if students took pride in their school because they're from that area or from, that helps a lot. And I feel like there's some students that just don't get that. We have students from Raleigh that bus up here. We have students from other areas that bus up here, and I feel like they don't feel that connection sometimes because they're from not so far away, but that's not their area. So trying to get them to buy in and everything else. And I think that helps out with a lot with like the sports. Rolesville High School football is doing really good. That ties in good. That gives you pride and stuff. But other things other than just sports to get you to have pride and really love where you go to school at.
Absolutely, and I have that captured in the spirit of transparency. I'm taking notes on my phone. I'm trying to get caught up with the 21st century instead of writing, so I have that captured. So if you see my head down, I'm just typing what you share.
That's fine.
And I appreciate that, but that's a great point. And I got community connections and making sure. What about community schools as well? And as you know, they're talking about the enrollment plan this evening, so that just ties in line that I can take back that.
Okay.
I do have one other question. This whole project that you put together, was COVID a big part of this? Because you have those kids that are still, we're going to see what the effects are of those kids who were homeschooled, not engaged. The issues with mental health really came into play. The lack, well, I'm not sure if the correct word is the lack of testing, but how some schools weren't even doing the testing because of that disturbance in their, and how they were learning. So.
You can see the impacts of COVID all in our strategic plan. When you think about student knowledge and skills, you look at the student disposition and well-being, even down to the operational effectiveness. It's all throughout there. And research shows that not only did students lose academically, they lost emotionally and socially of how to engage with one another. And that's right there in the student disposition and well-being in which we have captured. So the impact of COVID is streamlined all through our strategic plan. But one of the things that we really haven't talked about is about equity, how our plan is rooted in equity to ensure equitable access, equitable outcomes, and many other different things as well. Leanne, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I will say we had begun our strategic planning process prior to COVID. We paused it to focus on reopening schools and COVID response, and then picked it back up in 2022 and picked it back up from COVID. So everything that you see here was developed in response to COVID as well.
Those numbers are going to be interesting then when you're doing 5 years and then, after that.
Absolutely.
So since these efforts started back in 2020, all of the things that you have outlined in here, you've already started working towards?
No, so this started, we started developing the plan in 22. We paused it, and basically almost nothing from pre-COVID came forward. Almost everything is post-COVID. So it was just approved by our board in May, and so we are just beginning to implement it right now. Having set these goals, we're in the very initial stages of implementation as well. I will also go back to your question about what can folks in Rolesville also do. I will say we keep this feedback always open. So I'll put it on the screen for anybody who's watching on YouTube or any of those other things, that we are always open to that feedback. We read it every Friday to see what feedback we got that week from our communities. And so if anyone is listening to this and then thinks like, oh, but have you thought about this? We would ask that you give that feedback there, because we will definitely share it with our teams as well.
Any other thoughts, concerns, considerations?
Any other questions from the
Attorney
board?
Neal, you haven't said anything. Is there anything? We can answer your questions too, my friend.
This is fantastic, and as a Durham resident, Durham Public Schools might want to steal some of this. I'm a father of a Durham School of the Arts kid, so we'll be looking at this. It's fantastic.
Mr. Arnold?
Any other questions?
So the only thing, from an operational perspective, there's 2 points that came forward that I want to just embellish a little bit on the connectivity. We're all taxpayers, and we don't get to use your facilities very much. We share facilities. We have a lot of athletic recreation programming that we have these structured, one-size-fits-all agreements, as you know, and it really restricts communities our size to be able to participate in recreational facilities that are built by the same taxpayer. And so I encourage everybody in your side to continue to imagine and think through those agreements and how we can better do those, working with the communities that we have here, because we're limited on our recreation opportunities as a smaller community. We have to use what's available, and when it's limited, we don't get much access to them. The second part is safety. We have the captain here tonight, but we know that that's an ongoing consideration for you all from both a daily perspective, but also, you know, the transportation component. Rolesville High has some safety considerations. We spent a fairly significant amount of time in the spring trying to solve an safe access on Young Street, Rolesville Street into the community, into the high school, and it failed because there's no money for the school district to resolve some of the safety issues. And so those are, and then we have daily impacts to our community of the, you know, the transportation in and out and the waiting to pick up adults, pick up the students, and they're queuing half hour before school ends and such. And so those are those high connectivity impacts that we have that we would love to be able to figure out how it could be better from an operational perspective. That's not really a student item, it's just more of a community item.
So who would be your contact for our people to get in touch with to really see if we can partner with trying to address?
You can start with me.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Any other questions, Boyd?
No, sir.
I just want to thank you guys for coming out. A great presentation, and I think we all have testimonies for Wake County school system. I think all of us have kids in there. I had kids in there. They graduated a long time ago. Actually, my 3 graduated from WFR. The youngest one in 2013, the last year. But most of their experience was under this guy, Principal Smith. I don't know if you know him or not.
Yeah,
but
I know him well.
But I do remember you followed his footsteps in there, I think, and
He hired me.
He did.
Yes, he did.
And but I have to say we have great. I really think people move to Wake County because of the school system. I really do, and I've heard that. I've heard them tell me that you know it's one of the best ones. It may be the best one in the state. It is the biggest one in the state, right?
That is correct.
And
15th in the nation.
15th in the nation, 155,000 students or something like that, right?
Close to 160, but
160 now.
Yeah.
Grows every day, huh?
it does.
But you know, it's a great system that you guys have. As you just said, gets bigger and bigger. I think just keep up the good work. I see the biggest thing I take away from your presentation is you're not setting static. You know, you're looking to improve. You're looking to make it better, and doing a very good job at that. And I think lastly, you know, I just want to say I personally, you know, have contacts with our school system, especially high school. You know, Principal Perry is top notch, and very good. And Dan's been working very hard with ROTC program, and made a lot of progress. So Kelly, as he talks about, works with some of the safety things, the chief and captain out there. We really are proud to have Wake County schools, you know, here in Rolesville, and I think when it comes from Wake County schools, there is no better public schools than Wake County. So I appreciate y'all coming out. Appreciate taking time to bring us up to speed on what you have going on, and welcome back. I mean, let's make this a little bit more, you know, routine if we can.
Absolutely.
And so welcome back. I'll welcome you already to come back in the future and maybe give us an update or something.
Thank you very much. And we will send who do we send our contact information so that we can be accessible to you? If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or considerations,
Yeah.
definitely reach out to me, and we will be more than happy to provide you the information that you need or request.
Well, thank you, thank you. And with that, I think we're going to take, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess to let the engineers get set up on their presentation, and also give the board a time to shake your hand or have a question for you. So we're going to go in a recess, probably, let's say we'll start back at 7 o'clock. Thanks, appreciate that.
Briefly.
Okay, all right.
It's so wonderful to see you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the work session back into order. I see Meredith is up and ready to go. So the next item is a review of results of the Averett, Young, and Rolesville Road Corridor Study. All yours.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Curran and Town Board of Commissioners. This evening, we have Exalt Engineering assisting with the presentation of the results of the Averett, Young, and Rolesville Road Corridor Study. In addition to presenting the results of this study, they will go over next steps as well as unique assumptions that went into this project. So with us tonight are Brittany Chase, Lisa Lundeen, and Kathy Kennedy, all engineers with Exalt, and I will hand it over to them to give the presentation. Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you,
again.
Meredith. Welcome
back.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you for having us. Ms. Payton, do you need our address or anything for the record? Okay, great. We have enjoyed working with town staff over the last several months, and we are really excited to be here to present the results of the completed study for the Averett, Young, Rolesville corridor. I did want to take a minute to just reintroduce ourselves, as it's been a while since we've had the pleasure of presenting in front of you all. My name is Brittany Chase, and I was the overall project manager for this study. Lisa Lundeen was the lead for the traffic analysis and forecasting tasks, and Kathy Kennedy was the lead for the roadway conceptual design and cost development tasks. In this slide, just as a quick overview, shows our study area along the corridor, bounded to the north by NC 98 and to the south by Mitchell Mill Road. From coordination with staff and input from the board, we identified the key intersections along the corridor to be, again, that northern intersection of 98, Jones Dairy Road, South Main Street, US 401 bypass, the Rolesville High School driveway, and Mitchell Mill Road being that southern boundary intersection. The intent of this study was to analyze the corridor under future conditions 10 years from now, and to identify improvements that were needed to allow the intersections to operate acceptably, as well as the corridor sections in between the intersections. The corridor itself provides an important connection from the town to surrounding municipalities, provides access to major commuter roadways, and also supports various developments along the corridor itself. So this map shows the development along the corridor, and that there are many growth opportunities to capture along the corridor. So if you look at the yellow areas, that shows our existing developments. The red areas are the approved developments. So development plans that have already been submitted and approved, some are under construction already. The blue areas are vacant pieces of land that will likely be developed within the next 10 years. The green parcels are also vacant land, but will likely not be developed within the next 10 years, just due to general constructability, developability constraints, mainly due to the watershed.
Quick question. The very top is not in Rolesville, the top red piece?
Yep.
So are you kind of showing this because that subdivision will come down our street all the way to the main, to get on the bypass?
Because that top intersection was included in our study, the traffic from that development will be at that intersection.
Okay, so you're not necessarily thinking they will come across 98?
Not necessarily all the way down. We'd have to look at the specific assignment we assume for that, but it will impact at least a part of the corridor.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have two future year scenarios, volume-wise, that we looked at, given the potential for development with the vacant land along the corridor. Scenario 1 includes existing traffic, approved development traffic, again, we know that traffic is coming because the developments have been approved, and then the vacant land development assumptions. For scenario 1, the land use assumptions for the vacant land was based on the future land use map and also coordination with town staff. The scenario 2 volumes, same kind of idea, existing traffic, approved development traffic. However, for the vacant land, we assumed some higher density development. And again, that was based on coordination with town staff of what would be likely to go in those parcels. So we looked at 2 volume scenarios, but we had 3 alternative models that we looked at. So scenario 1 volumes, and again, that's kind of that baseline development of the vacant land, went into alternative 1, which included existing cross-section. So that's what the roadway network is today. Scenario 2 volumes went into alternative 2 and alternative 3. Alternative 2 also looked at those existing cross-sections, while alternative 3 considered the CTP ultimate cross-sections. So when you're looking at the differences between alternative 1 and alternative 2, the only difference is higher density development. When you're looking at alternative 2 to alternative 3, the only difference is you're now including your ultimate cross-sections in there. So there's kind of a comparison you can make across the board.
I just want to say I'm very glad that you all are here to explain this because it was a lot.
We're trying our best to break it down
I
for you.
appreciate you.
Okay, so again, we analyzed all 3 alternatives in the future year analysis of 2033, 10 years from now. With coordination with staff, again, we decided that our kind of level of service threshold would be set at D. And that's pretty much an industry standard for planning and designing. So that means that we load all this traffic on the corridor, but we want to identify improvements that are needed to bring the intersection level of service to a D. We applied the same level of service threshold to the corridor segments in between each intersection as well. We want those to operate at level of service D to identify any widening needs. From there, we did develop conceptual horizontal exhibits and cost development for alternative 3 only. Alternative 3 is what the town is ultimately desiring, right? It's our ultimate cross-sections, what we're planning for, what we're asking developers to do frontage widening for. So this is really kind of our goal alternative when all is said and done. And it does matter that we did need to pick one defined alternative because when you add through lanes, for instance, due to some of these ultimate cross-sections, you don't necessarily need as many turn lanes at the intersection. So we really did want to hone in on one alternative so we can plan appropriately for that. Lisa and Kathy are going to go through our recommendations by intersection for you all next.
And as Brittany mentioned, we are going to go through each intersection, starting up at the north at NC 98 and Wade Avenue. And there are 3 figures on this slide showing the results for our alternative 1, alternative 2, and alternative 3 scenarios. As you can see in alternative 1 specifically, the green arrows are committed improvements by others, which only includes a signal upgrade as part of an NCDOT project. And then the red improvements that you see on there are recommended based on the scenario 1 volumes. And they include some turn lane extensions on NC 98 and a northbound left and a northbound right on Averitt Road. If we move over to alternative 2, you can see once again the improvements in green are the committed improvements, which is the same as alternative 1. The red are recommended with alternative 1, so those same turn lane extensions and additional turn lanes. And then blue are additional recommendations that are on top of the alternative 1. So again, that alternative 2 is considering the additional higher development density traffic. And as you can see, we would need some longer eastbound left turn lanes on NC 98. We would also need the addition of an eastbound right turn lane on NC 98, as well as lengthening those previously identified northbound left and northbound right turn lanes on Averitt Road.
And that's based on the projects that we currently have approved, correct? Number 2?
That would be alternative 1 is currently approved.
Okay, all right.
Alternative 2 is if we were to consider higher density.
Okay, yes, all right, thank you.
Moving on to that picture on the bottom is alternative 3, which is considering the ultimate cross sections, again, in the Rolesville Moves Corridor, or CTP plan, which includes, so the green, this time the colors are switched up a little bit. The green is committed to by others, which includes that, once again, the signal modification at that intersection, as well as there is an extension of the eastbound left turn lane on NC 98. The blue arrows represent the ultimate cross-section, which would include a 4-lane divided section along NC 98 and Averett Road. And when we consider those wider cross-sections, we actually need less turn lane improvements with this alternative. And so on top of those, you can see there's a only one red improvement for this intersection, which is extending the westbound left on NC 98.
And so as Brittany mentioned, kind of what we were targeted to do was provide a visual of that alternative 3, so kind of that ultimate footprint coming in. And so we've done that for all 6 intersections, and I want to kind of just explain the map here so you can kind of follow it'll apply to the different ones. So on this map, bottom left, you'll have your legend to kind of explain the colors, but I'll walk through that right now too. So what we've done is anything that's existing is blue. So all your existing pavement out there is blue. Anything that needed to be widened to account for these lanes is red. We have yellow to show any like concrete islands that would be dividing opposing traffic. And then green is more of your larger medians, so a grass median. And again, this is building on that CTP plan. So we've taken what was recommended in there as well as what was recommended in the bike plan, to whether it was a buffered bike lane, a side trail on one side, sidewalk on the other. And we've kind of given you that full picture at this intersection. In this map, you'll see those like pink magenta lines. Those are your existing property information based on GIS. And then we've also shown what right-of-way would be needed. And those are your red lines with that RW circles. And that right-of-way is set basically on that outermost pedestrian improvement. So a trail, there's a certain offset off, the sidewalk, a certain offset off. And I can't give you a definitive width because it depends on how many turn lanes and everything else in there. But again, we've started with that CTP, added the bike ped recommendations, and then any traffic improvements needed to get that level of service. Also on this map, you'll see on the top right corner, we kind of have some design considerations, and I'll walk through that with each intersection. But that's kind of some unique notes for each intersection. And then at the bottom right in this one, you'll see this intersection cost. And so what we've done for the cost is that's the construction cost. So we've kind of, the improvements you see on the screen is what we've captured. You'll notice that our improvements aren't tying back to existing, and that's based on that concept of that ultimate typical section is going to be in place. So that's why we've truncated it there, and we've kind of stopped it where any turn lane tapers might have been tying out. And if there wasn't a turn lane taper, then about 200 feet down, just to kind of give you that intersection cost of what's anticipated. And this is the construction cost. So this is not factoring in right-of-way, utilities with that process, but really the construction cost of what would be for the materials to get it built.
And that's taking it from existing?
From existing,
so
yes.
So that includes your...
That ultimate footprint is incorporated in this total number. And like I said, we've shown the proposed right-of-way. There's still a chance that you may need utility easements or drainage easements, but again, at this 30,000 level, we've shown that right-of-way. That's your key piece to start with. This intersection's pretty standard in terms of getting the improvements in. We did symmetric widening, and actually we attempted to do symmetric widening at the different intersections just because unless there is something immediately upstream or downstream of the intersection, primarily being cemeteries, if we saw something like that in close vicinity, that would sway the widening method. But I will just caveat, we've put in the asymmetric widening, but know that there is some flexibility, particularly as this entire corridor gets designed and you know downstream how the lane configuration's coming in, accounting for this or that in actual survey. It could slide some, but you have the general footprint of what this improvement would look like shown. So this one I was saying was pretty standard. One thing I did just want to make note is that median on Averett Road, we had the potential to add a left turn lane in there. So we ran it based on what traffic needed. And as Lisa said, by having those extra through lanes, you didn't necessarily need as many turn lanes and different things, but there is the space in the room, so it would be easy to add a dedicated left turn lane in that median footprint at this intersection.
Could I ask a question about the intersection?
Yep.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
I looked at this once, it just struck me though. And we may need to get back to you on this, but I think Thales has a high school planned in that corner, the north corner, northeast, west corner, that has gone through Wake Forest approval. That is a proposed high school. I don't see it showing up, it shows up as green on your overall map in that corner. We probably should do some research to make sure I'm accurate on that. And if it is, that may have some implications to this design. I'm not certain, but I don't know if you knew about that or heard about that?
Yeah, we did
Okay.
coordinate with the town of Wake Forest. I'll let Lisa
Okay.
speak to that.
We did, yeah, and we did ask them about that specific development, and they said it was no longer moving forward.
Oh.
So we did not include it in our study.
But we will
Okay.
make note to double check.
Yeah,
on
no,
that.
okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks. Hmm.
Moving on to our next intersection, Averett Road at Jones Dairy Road. Looking at our three alternatives on the screen again. Alternative one, again, the green shows committed improvements by others. And the only improvements here were to add an eastbound left turn lane on Jones Dairy Road and also monitor for a signal. So it's already kind of been on the radar that a signal may be needed at this intersection from other TIAs that have been done in the area. And then a red, the improvements shown in red are recommended based on our study. And our recommendation is to extend that northbound left turn lane to about 500 feet of storage. We just noticed there was a lot of queuing trying to turn left from northbound to Jones Dairy Road. And then alternative two, the green, again, are the committed improvements. The red are recommended with alternative one, and the blue are additional recommendations for alternative two. And they include extending that eastbound left turn lane, as well as extending that northbound left turn lane even more from northbound Averett Road onto Jones Dairy Road.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by extended?
Just lengthen the turn lane.
So how many cars could stack up?
Okay,
And that,
I was thinking it was something else, but when you said it just now, like, that doesn't make sense for me.
Yep.
just how many cars could wait in that dedicated lane, like have a dedicated lane for them to sit?
So what is the average number of cars? Is there an average on a road like that?
Average number of cars
That would be in the lane, the left
that would be
turning lane.
turning left.
Yeah, like, is it three? Are you extending it to like 5 or 6 or 7? Like, what do you mean by extended? How?
Vehicles stored, you're talking about how many vehicles be stacked up there.
Correct.
So if you look at 575, we typically account for 25 feet per vehicle. So whatever that math is.
That's okay, you know, I'm not gonna hold you to that.
Yeah.
But the reason why I ask, because isn't there a road before that road as well? Is it, what are we at?
Pierce Road?
Yeah, Chalk Road, right? So you can only extend it but so far anyway, because then it would sort of block that road, correct?
Yeah, and we can pull up the concept exhibit to get an idea of how much space is in between there.
Yeah, so space between,
There is plenty of room between Chalk Road
you
and
could
this
get the
intersection.
525 in, but it'll be close to Chalk Road.
Okay.
We did recommend that longer turn length, or turn lane, just because otherwise it could spill back into that through lane, which would then hinder the traffic going northbound on Averett Road. That is the reason for that longer turn lane recommendation.
Could you know where I noticed that at? I know it's probably not the same road, that's what I was thinking of. On bypass, right after you pass, like Sheets, I think? No, right as you're approaching Forestville Road. That road always holds up, the left lane is always held up because of traffic that's held and then
It overflows into your through lane, yeah.
That's what we're trying to avoid with our recommendations, is getting all the cars to stack in those turn lanes.
Gotcha, all right, thank you.
Our alternative 3, once again, took into account the cross sections from the CTP plan. And the green we see is the committed improvements. The blue arrows there account for the ultimate cross section, which is a 4-lane divided section on Jones Dairy Road, as well as a 4-lane divided section on Averett Road. And what you can see in red is our recommended improvements on top of that, which includes a second northbound left turn lane. And so those 2 northbound left turn lanes would be shorter compared to the extended 1 long turn lane. This would just help with overall intersection operations, as well as, getting the traffic through that intersection a little quicker.
So can I ask one question? I'm probably jumping somewhere else, but you said a 4-lane road during that extension, right? Between 98 and between Jones Dairy and where? 98.
Yeah, so the stuff in the blue box kind of gives you that visual of what the road is doing. So it says Averett Road, Young, from NC 98 to Main Street. And so the CTP had recommended a 4-lane divided. So that's what we've pulled in, is that 4
For that chunk right there.
For that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then it's going to drop down to 2 lanes.
It drops down at 2 lanes. And what's recommended in the CTP, we have one revision that we're suggesting.
Okay, I'll wait.
That we'll get to.
Okay.
But
Okay.
And if you look at page 22 of the actual report that should be in your packet, it shows what those CTP sections are and what our recommendations are compared to that.
I have that noted right
Okay.
there. Okay, thank you. I don't want to get you all off track.
So here's the visual of that alternative 3. So again, CTP is in place, the recommendations we had. North is looking to the right here. This was one of the intersections, and I mentioned, we looked at, there's a cemetery. So just south of Jones Dairy, you see at the far left of the screen, the Rolesville Cemetery. So we know we don't want to get into the cemetery with any road improvements. So this is one where we've shifted it, knowing that that's going to be necessary. And as I mentioned, we don't necessarily know all the constraints between every intersection, but this was close enough. So we went ahead and shifted on this location. And as you can see, that means on the east side, there's actually the existing right-of-way, the GIS right-of-way was sufficient, and then we would need the right-of-way on the west side with this. And this one has the dual left turns going onto Jones Dairy. So you can see we kind of tapered out to a wider section as we approach that intersection to give that storage space.
Just a little more, okay, thank you.
What's that? Did it go? Oh, get it off the map? Was it?
I think she wanted to see where you were.
Oh, point, gotcha. I can do that, yes. So here's the dual left turns. And so basically, we had our 4-lane that we're tying to back here, and we actually had to start widening out, tapering it out, so that we could get these 2 full lanes in here. The 2-lane or 4-lane divided, that median can fit 1 turn lane without additional widening. So because we needed 2 turn lanes there, we had to go wider. So in essence, your median area would be both turn lanes and that little yellow concrete island is what would be your median. But we're putting 2 turn lanes in that median. Then the next intersection that we looked at was the Young Street at Main Street
intersection. And once again, you'll see alternatives 1, 2, and 3 on the screen. Starting with alternative 1, the green improvements are committed, which includes some pedestrian improvements by NCDOT, as well as restriping that southbound left through lane into, or southbound, yeah, that through, is a through left turn lane into a through lane. And the red improvements are recommended on top of the committed improvements, which include quite a lot at this intersection. We would propose extending the southbound right turn lane on Young Street, as well as constructing a southbound left turn lane, and also adding that additional southbound through lane. And then on the northbound approach, we would recommend extending the northbound left turn lane, as well as constructing an additional northbound through lane. And on the eastbound approach, we would recommend extending that eastbound left turn lane to accommodate quite a bit of storage. There were a lot of cars that we noticed turning left at this intersection, as well as constructing an eastbound right turn lane.
She's talking about up here, extending that turn lane.
Yes. Then moving on to alternative 2, the same green committed improvements are there as alternative 1, and those red improvements are the same recommendations as alternative 1. And then those blue arrows in text are additional recommendations for alternative 2. And those include constructing a second eastbound left turn lane.
You do it.
Oh, happy to point. Constructing a second eastbound left turn lane on Main Street, as well as extending that eastbound right turn lane. And once again, extending this northbound left turn lane even longer than alternative 1. And as well as this extending the southbound turn lane on top of the alternative 1 recommendations. And then again, alternative 3 takes into account the CTP plan cross sections. And the green are the same committed improvements by others. The blue arrows are the ultimate cross section. And the red are the recommendations on top of the Rolesville moves cross sections, which those include, once again, extending that southbound right turn lane, constructing a southbound left turn lane, extending that northbound left turn lane, constructing an additional northbound through lane. The same as alternative 2, constructing that second eastbound left turn lane and constructing an eastbound right turn lane.
And this is one of the locations where there's improvements to the CTP. So you'd asked about how far did you carry those, the 4-lane section down. And in the CTP, it stopped at Main Street. That was kind of that breaking point. But we actually need it to be carry on south of the high school is ultimately. Spoiler alert, goes to that. But it will continue further down, and that's where that drop will take place.
And that is just to achieve the level of service D at all of our study intersections, as well as the corridor itself.
I have a little question real quick. So, you can't answer it yet, that's fine. So with the improvements that you're referring to, have we not requested this study? Would there be like crazy amounts of traffic jams?
There's a lot of traffic here. There's a lot of traffic in a downtown area. There's just a lot, and I think the way everything's projected to move and traffic to go, it's still busy. I mean, this is a lot. And if we flip to this next slide, and you can see this in your packet too. You'll be able to zoom in because this is zoomed out further. But you can see there's a lot of red in comparison to the blue. I mean, what's out there today is not sufficient for what needs to get there. And this is a level of service, I think D was what that threshold was, so it's.
So this is in areas that are improved, there's some areas that are to be improved and what have you? That's what you said earlier.
Well,
right?
yep. This is,
Flip back, I'm sorry, I'm only asking that because I'm wondering who's footing that bill? Is that the town or is that the other developers, future developers that are coming?
Yeah, we'll get to some ideas on that
Okay.
towards the end.
Gotcha.
Well, and remember, if I can add just one context as we leave this slide, that you adopted a plan that emphasizes pedestrian and bicycle traffic. So this is about moving traffic to D, which is contrasted with a different plan,
Exactly.
which is part of what we're implementing as far as the Main Street project.
Okay, thank you.
and so here's alternative 3, and the visual of what that looks like. North is to your right in this screen. On this map, we have a future development that's known that's going place. So that cobblestone, which is taking place in that northwest corner, that was kind of a fixed development in place at this point. So we kind of factored that in this design, which is what resulted in this being asymmetric widening. So that north leg on Young Street, we're widening to the east with that development, as well as on Main Street, we're kind of going south. So you see that's where the red shows up on those two legs. As we go south past Main Street here, we're actually widening on the opposite side. And this was based off of, there is that church development that its building is right up on the GIS right-of-way, as well as if you look, so the church here, and if you look down here, there's also another little cemetery. So that little square property was another cemetery. So, so that kind of is why those were the constraints there that kind of pushed it asymmetric in this location. So this is opportunity, I guess, for redevelopment as this comes through, and we talked about there's just a lot of traffic at this. And I think we kind of went back, Lisa and I, we went back and forth on what can we do, because it's limited. There's not a lot of footprint to work with. And as you mentioned, we do have the pedestrian improvements shown as well, so a side path and sidewalk and bike lanes all going into. So that just adds to that footprint of what we're getting through here. I will point out too, up here on the north leg, the cobblestone development had some parallel parking shown. So we held that as what we showed here. So there's 5 parking spots that they had that we held in that place. So that's also reflected in this development. All right, I think that was my main points on that one.
Our next intersection was at Young Street and US 401. In alternative 1, you'll see in green, which there are no green improvements here, would be committed to by others. And then the red is our recommended improvements. And as you can see on the screen, we would recommend extending that southbound right turn lane to continue that 4-lane section down to US 401. We would also recommend extending that northbound right turn lane to accommodate all that traffic turning from Young Street onto US 401. We would also recommend changing this eastbound right turn lane here and making that free flow onto Young Street, just to get that traffic moving a little quicker, as well as extending the westbound right turn lane on US 401 to travel northbound on Young Street. In our alternative 2, we have the same things. The red, there was no green improvements here. The red improvements are the same as alternative 1, and the blue show the additional recommendations with alternate 2. And for this one, for the northbound right turn lanes, we actually recommend constructing a 3rd northbound right turn lane, making those turn lanes free flow onto US 401 to move that traffic a little more efficiently, as well as changing the southbound right turn lane into also a free flow turning movement as well. And as well as the the westbound right, turn that into a free flow onto northbound Young Street. And then alternative 3 takes into account the CTP cross sections. And there were no changes to US 401 for this one, as well as there were no changes to Young Street here either. But as you can see, I think we do need some additional widening through US 401, as we pointed out in alternative 1 and 2. And so some additional improvements are shown in red here for alternative 3, which is, again, this eastbound right would be free flow. This northbound right would have that additional northbound right turn lane with, as a free flow lane. And the southbound right, once again, would be a free flow turn lane.
Let's look at the map. I think so this will help too, because it's a super street. So you have all your right turns, and part of what we would do with this is there's 3 right turns going here. 2 of them are in the blue, and this one actually has minimal widening needed to get these in place. So it's a little bit simpler in that regard. But
This is coming off of East Young Street,
high
connected to
school.
401?
Yeah, going to the school outwards.
Right.
The high school is down,
High school
yeah,
across
Down here.
the street.
down that way.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong side of the street then. So, but it still helps, because if you're coming from the top,
here's north too,
Young
just to give you north.
all right, so that's Young Street on the top,
Mhm.
and you're making that right turn,
Mm-hmm.
that's already like widened, but you know, they don't really, people use it illegally. Is that taken into consideration, that portion?
That's part of why there's not as much pavement needed, because it was a wider asphalt out there today. And basically your 2 inner, I'll call them your inner 2 right turn lanes, so kind of where I'm pointing, the intended use of those would be to get and do your U-turn movement down here. Whereas this outer one, it would be signed more, so this is to get you going northbound on 401. So,
Because the higher demand is to do a U-turn.
yeah,
This particular one doesn't require an additional right-of-way?
no. There's a small little sliver up here, but that's, again, it's
That's-
based on GIS information, and that was just the offset
Yeah.
needed.
That's the only one that doesn't require right-of-way then.
Yep. Yep. And this one, you all have done some improvements to the pedestrian crossing with that, what they call like a Z crossing, so you zigzag kind of through the intersection. We held that and didn't have to modify that. So really, we were just adding this additional right turn lane to get that free flow movement. So, yeah, I think that's, this is one of the.
2 right turn lanes there?
There's actually 3. I wish I could zoom in. I don't know if I. Yeah, there's 2. So 2 on the blue, 1 on the red here. On the north side though, the west side, there's 2. There's 1 that goes in and would kind of be set up to use that U-turn movement, and then the free flow right turn one.
So I have a question about this. I don't know how you fix it, but let's say you're coming from Raleigh, which is the top left corner. You're coming down this road and you're going to make that turn into towards the high school. You're going to take it, but you have somebody else sitting at this intersection coming out to go onto 401. The biggest issue I've seen so far on both these this intersection and the one in front of the high school is people come into that turn lane and they're going to turn towards the high school, and you cannot see out to see if you can go on that red.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah, and I'm like, can you bring that lane further off the highway enough for that turn lane to give a visual so you can actually see if you can go on red, or how do you do that?
The turn lane coming off 401 onto Young will
Yep.
be a free flow.
Okay.
Turn lane, so you don't have to worry about
Okay.
yielding to
Right.
to that opposing left.
Yeah, and then the people turning out from the red is like you still have a car in your sight and you can't see if somebody's actually going to come through that intersection for you to make that right. It's just like they block it enough that just, I've lost a vehicle here. So that's why I'm asking about
Oh, but it's
this
that
intersection.
yellow concrete right there.
Yeah, but so Yeah, I still don't think it gives you enough
Is
room.
there gonna be a stoplight there as well? Was there a stoplight?
There's a
there for that?
stoplight.
Yeah, there is
There
one
is
there.
one. Mhm.
Yeah.
So just
That right will have
yeah.
its own receiving lane, so it will
Yeah.
just be able to go.
So
to
yeah,
teaching.
there's
And
a
then
little
those
bit of
left
widening
turns-
here.
Those left turns will have their own.
Okay.
If you can show, these left turns will go directly into that lane.
Yeah.
And have their own lane.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about that. That's the biggest thing is like, if we're gonna allow left on red, you can never see if somebody's actually coming straight through that has a green light, to get in
And I
front of them.
think we could look to extend a monolithic island to kind of
Mhm.
keep that separator if
Yeah.
that's a concern, so that the left turn, they only have one lane they can go in. The free flow right would only have one turn they could go in.
Well, I'm actually talking, so if you're doing a right out of this road right now.
If you're going right out of
Yeah.
this way,
Yes, you can't see what's coming from Raleigh towards you.
there is actually, this one already has, so we have a concrete monolithic in place. And really, we have the extension of that red, which is your, kind of your merge lane
A
into
merge lane,
traffic.
okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And the location it extends to, you're going to lose some of your traffic who's going to be doing that U-turn movement. So you have less cars, I guess, at that
Right.
decision point. You're
Okay.
going to have some clearing the road, and that's where it's extended further back over
Okay.
here. And that yellow monolithic goes to about where my dot is now, so it is kind of defining that and gets you going where you'll have a better sight. You're not going to be straining
Right.
to see.
So the concern though would be the vehicles in the blue lanes essentially.
So yeah, if you're sitting in the
coming out,
blue
they're
and,
gonna go- they're gonna weave
and
into
somebody else is in that other blue lane coming,
They're
somebody else is gonna
waving.
make that turn, but somebody is right beside them in that right lane coming through that intersection.
Gotcha.
Like you
I know
can,
what you
it's like a
mean.
blind spot,
Gotcha.
like, right, yeah. I don't know if that blue lane can be moved further over off the highway a little bit and you have a little bit of a break island-wise between those, like a dedicated turn lane. You mean like it sits further over? I don't know. You'll see the same thing in front of this high school. It has the same thing, because people try to pull out of the high school and they can't see if somebody's coming up Rolesville Road. It's just kind of a blind spot.
This is going into Rolesville?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And something we could explore, we didn't incorporate this, but that could be considered here would be not allowing the right turns on red for those inner
Okay.
two lanes.
Yeah.
That outside lane has its own.
Right, okay,
That's a design consideration when they would look at the.
right.
Signal.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Next, we looked at the intersection of the Rolesville High School driveway. And in our alternative one, we see the green are the committed improvements by others. And there is, the point is tying into the Rolesville High School driveway as a fourth leg. And they are also building a northbound left turn lane into their development. And then the red are the improvements that we would recommend for alternative one, which include constructing an additional southbound left turn lane to get into the high school. And with that, I know right now that the northbound right is more of a free flow movement, and so we would actually restrict that to be yield controlled, so those two leftbound turn lanes could get into the high school. And a signal as well. And we know that there's a study going on for Rolesville High School, and they may kind of shift their traffic patterns around. They could shift some of their traffic over to Quarry Road, but we did not take that into consideration. When we were doing this study, they had not completed any transportation plans. So this is as if all that traffic is still on Rolesville High School driveway. For alternative two, the green, once again, are the committed improvements by others. The red are the recommendations with alternative one, and the blue are additional recommendations for alternative two. And our additional recommendation for alternative two is to add an additional northbound through lane, as well as a southbound through lane. And that northbound through lane would start just about 575 feet south of the intersection, just to give us more through capacity on Young Street. And alternative three is, once again, our CTP plan cross-sections. The green are the same committed improvements by others. The blue shows the ultimate cross-section, which there were no additional improvements here from the CTP plan. And the red show our recommendations. And once again, it's still considering a second southbound left through lane onto Rolesville High School driveway, that additional northbound through lane, that additional southbound through lane. Once again, with changing this northbound right to more of a yield control to allow for dual left turn lanes into the site.
So here's that visual with the exhibit. North is to your right on this one. And the green dotted is the point that we talked about development. We looked at their development plans and then also just considered there's an existing B&P at the school right here. And the best option here was still holding symmetric widening. So it does require some additional right away from the point, but it doesn't impact their development. It's within the buffered area for this. And as Lisa mentioned, there's the dual left turns going into the school that are proposed. So we have widened out to allow for dual lefts versus just a single left turn at that location. This is where the transition can take place between, we need to get the through lanes past this signal, the two through lanes going southbound and northbound here. And so south of this signal is where we would start tapering. Something we went ahead and kind of assumed is this is an undeveloped piece of land here. So we've actually projected that right-of-way kind of should extend past this signal and hold there, because ultimately a good way to get rid of transition from the 2 lanes to 1 would be to have a drop lane. And logically, if there's some development that goes in here, that outer lane becomes a right lane drop. So that right lane would turn into the development. We don't know where it would be, where a driveway would be on here, so we just kind of projected through that parcel that you would need right away, and that gives you that ability to have that transition from 2 southbound to 1.
Would it make sense for it to go straight across from the entrance to Rolesville High School?
And it does. We have it, basically we have it shown the minimum it needs to go south of the high school. But then it starts tapering back. And
there is a driveway that does line up with the high school driveway, and that's the point.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we needed the through to go south of that signal. So your drop lane couldn't take place at the point. It needs to go through the signal. And ultimately, people will kind of figure out that it becomes a drop lane. So that's where longer term, it'd be better to have it as a right drop lane into the intersection and get you further south from that signal. But traffic-wise, what we have is like the minimum of what would need to be in place.
Last intersection.
Yep. Last intersection that we looked at was Rolesville Road at Mitchell Mill Road. And this one's kind of an easy one as far as improvements go. For alternative 1, the green improvements you see are committed by others, and we noticed that several developments in this area, we're looking at a signal at this intersection, and we did see a developer's agreement between a few developments. And then on top of that, the red is recommended in our study, which would just be actually implementing that signal at the intersection, but no turn lane improvements for alternative 1. And alternative 2, same thing here. There are no additional improvements with alternative 2. It is just still that signal at the intersection. Alternative 3 took into account the CTP cross sections, which include a 4-lane median divided section on Mitchell Mill Road, as well as on northbound Rolesville Road, a 4-lane median divided section. But then the southbound leg, the CTP only recommended a 2-lane undivided section, so we kept that. And as you can see, there are no additional red improvements on this diagram aside from the signalization at this intersection.
So here's that visual representation. North is pointing up to the top right corner. This is a pretty skewed intersection, so you do see decent amount of pavement added because of the skewed nature. There's also a cemetery down here, so that also dictated having to widen to the west along Mitchell Mill Road. So again, that also contributed to the red pavement you see here. But otherwise, like Lisa said, there wasn't a lot of changes in the configuration other than what the CTP had in play. One thing we did note, I guess a study back in 2014 was done about potentially having offset intersections. So again, traffic-wise, didn't dictate that need, but that was something we had just seen, which would mean your Mitchell Mill would tie in here. You'd have a signal at Rolesville there, and then same thing here. This could tie in, and you just have two intersections offset. So we just made note of that, but again, traffic would function as it's shown. I think that was that.
And just to go over the general widening, we kind of talked through each intersection and some widening that could be needed. And this chart on your right here shows all of our segments as well as the existing cross sections. And so we do have a 2-lane cross section throughout the entire corridor today. As a reminder, our alternative 1 kept those recommendations with a 2-lane cross section all the way until Main Street, and then between Main Street and US 401, we did recommend that 4-lane section, and then tapering it back to a 2-lane section south of US 401. And then alternative 2 was essentially the same thing as alternative 1 with the addition of the 4-lane cross section extending towards Rolesville High School. And for alternative 3, we looked at a 4-lane divided section between Waite Avenue and Main Street. The CTP showed only a 2-lane section south of Main Street, but we did recommend extending that 4-lane section all the way down through Rolesville High School. And then from south of Rolesville High School to Mitchell Mill, the CTP plan did consider a 2-lane section, and that's what we considered in our study as well, just that 2-lane section south of Rolesville High School. As part of our study, we also looked at the traffic safety along our corridor.
May I ask one question on your last slide?
Sure.
So on the piece of land between Jones Dairy and Main Street, it will drop from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, except for in the CPT plan. Is that correct? Am I reading that right? Because my concern is going from 4 lanes to 2 lanes and then picking back up at 4 lanes. Is that stretch of land not going to be congested and hard to get out of those drives?
So the CTP, so this last column is your CTP and bike plan. And you can see they had 4 lanes,
Right.
and the transition took place between that area you talked.
Right.
When we ran the traffic forecast numbers, we actually needed 4 lanes. So we're recommending, instead of the 2 lanes that the CTP showed, back all the way really at alternative 1, we said it really needed to be 4 to function.
That's Main Street to the bypass.
Yes, but you said from Jones, south of Jones Dairy, right?
I'm talking about Jones Dairy to Main Street.
The intersection part of Jones Dairy?
Actually, I'm talking about from Chalk to Granite Falls is the section of roadway that I'm actually talking about. So my concern is on there, it's 2 lanes. Is that correct?
No. So
Except for the CPT is 4 lanes.
That's correct. So the CTP is what we started as our base for this alternative 3, and that had the 4 lanes.
Okay.
And so we needed to extend that.
So did you all go out there and look at that area? Is that able to be
widen to 4 lanes?
So our scope was a little bit restricted to just looking at the intersections. for
Okay,
the
that's okay.
widening.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And I
Okay.
think all of these are gonna have, to go from 2 to 4, you need space, like it's
Yeah.
gonna be space.
Yeah.
So, to get that traffic to move, you need that footprint.
So would it be a fight to get from 4 to 2? But that is on your CTP, so it should be incorporated into frontage widening requirements of
Okay.
developers already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question.
But she said that in the CPT, it's already outlined as having 4 lanes.
In looking at the traffic safety along this corridor, NCDOT did give us the 5-year crash history along our corridor and at each intersection. And this map on your right here, all these dots represent individual crashes along the corridor and at each intersection. As you can see, this is the intersection right here with US 401, which is definitely a hot spot along the corridor. I think mainly because the volumes are also highest at this intersection. These blue circles represent the rear end crashes. And so we did notice that rear end crashes were the predominant crash type at this particular intersection. And then there are also, there's a little cluster here around Main Street as well. And this is the Rolesville High School driveway, which also has several crashes over the last 5 years. We did look at the crash rates, which take into consideration the frequency of crashes, and noticing along our corridor that these total crash rates are a bit higher than the statewide rate and the critical crash rates, which can indicate that it's a little bit higher of a crash rate corridor than other corridors, similar corridors in the state of North Carolina.
That's 401 and East Young Street?
Yes.
I just get part of that reason is when the sun shines on that street when you make that turn, it's absolutely awful. So you look to your left, you go out there, right in the back. I know a couple of students who got into accidents because they really couldn't see.
One thing to note also about the traffic safety analysis, we did look at the severity index, which is not shown on this slide. But the severity index along the corridor, as well as all intersections, were below essentially the threshold for needing any additional recommendations due to safety. It's just showing that there were less severe crashes along the corridor. But all of our recommendations from the capacity analysis, all the widening, all the extending of the turn lanes and the addition of turn lanes will help with traffic safety in this area. Generally, a congested network, you'll see more crashes than the more free-flowing conditions. So just those capacity analysis recommendations should help with the safety along the corridor.
And real quick, April, I was just gonna back up. It's the bike plan that made the 4-lane recommendation. It wasn't the CTP, but the bike lane is the one that has the 4 lanes, and they take it all the way from Waite to Main. So that's where it showed up instead, so.
When looking at this whole corridor, looking at areas where we can alleviate some of the congestion along the main corridor. This screenshot on your right here comes from the CTP plan. You'll notice some of these sections that are circled in red, we would consider more priority for this corridor. We notice a lot of the traffic is going towards the west, out towards Raleigh, and so being able to build some of these east-west connectors will help alleviate some of the congestion along the main Averett, Young, and Rolesville Road corridor. And then these other ones circled in blue, it will also help the overall, connectivity, but I would say that these are more what we would determine second priorities, just based on where all the traffic is going to and coming from.
And we had one other critical intersection that we wanted to specifically discuss, and Lisa's already kind of pointed to it, we do have significant improvements at the intersection with the Rolesville High School driveway, and through the corridor widening recommendations, we're recommending extending that 4-lane section, adding 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction along the corridor. But at the beginning of the study, as Lisa mentioned, we did participate in a meeting with town staff and Wake County staff to discuss the findings of the municipal school transportation assistance study that DOT was carrying on. And again, it wasn't completed at that time, so we made the decision to proceed with the current access configuration and current circulation pattern at that time. In August, because I'm a resident of Rolesville, I did notice the social media post about a change in the morning drop-off pattern. So we did just want to note that the recommendations in our study are due to morning and afternoon traffic, not just that morning. So we would not expect them to change due to the circulation change for the morning only. The other thing we want to note about the MSTA study is their build-out year was 2028 and ours is 2033. So theoretically, our volume should be more conservative than theirs. But all that being said, these studies should be looked at in conjunction with one another when considering improvements at this area. And that leads us to our next steps. What can we do with the information and results from this corridor study? We do see this as a base future planning tool and perhaps a tool that can be used to obtain funding. So for development plans, we can plan for future developments to account for and contribute to the overall widening needs as well as the improvements at the intersections. We know the right-of-way needs, so let's look to developers for dedication up front. As we discussed, there's a couple segments that the cross-sections are increased from what was recommended in the CTP or the bike plan. So taking those into account for frontage widening requirements. And also funding for improvements. So from the public side, the results of the study may be used for documentation purposes to seek funding from a state level. Sub-area contributions. So within the report, we have identified the sub-areas that contribute the higher volumes at each of the intersections. So from there, the town can set up developer agreements for contributions from developers for improving these intersections. So if we've noted sub-area 16 shown on this snippet contributes a significant amount of volume to the US 401 intersection, and then you have a submitted development plan within that sub-area, we can start to make those connections of which developments should be responsible for contributions to which intersections. And just a note, the reason why we included this snippet is sub-areas 12, 15, and it would just be the blue portion of 15 because green again is the not likely to be developed area, and 16. Those were pretty impactful sub-areas that showed up as contributing higher volumes to the majority of our study intersections. Land use decisions. So knowing the sub-areas that contribute to the intersection improvement needs, the town can use that information in making rezoning decisions for those sub-areas and possibly consider changes to the future land use map to restrict densities. For example, if you look at, and I copied this slide down for ease, if we go back and look at the Rolesville High School driveway, again, when we're looking at alternative 1 and alternative 2, the only difference is a higher density assumption for that vacant land in alternative 2 compared to alternative 1. So the differences that you see in improvements that were recommended would be quantifying that impact of allowing denser development. And in this case, it's an additional through lane in each direction on the corridor. So that's a pretty hefty difference we're seeing just from allowing denser development.
How do you describe denser development?
So the land.
Any numbers?
We did do numbers, and they're in the report. There are 2 figures that list out the assumptions used. So figure 8 on page 44 lists the development assumptions that were used for scenario 1. Figure 11 on page 47 does the same for scenario 2 volumes. So those scenario 2 volumes are your denser development assumptions for the vacant land.
That was 44
44 and what was the other page?
47.
47, yep. And that's something I can pull up at the end of the presentation as well, if you'd like to look at that a little bit further.
So what were those numbers again? I mean, 44, 47.
Yes.
But do you recall what the numbers are?
So we made different assumptions for all the different blue sub-areas, and that was based on coordination with town staff and what they feel would realistically come on, even with denser development.
We can pull it up. I think it might be helpful.
And I say that because I know across the street from the high school, somebody already came with like less than 100 townhomes.
Yeah, and again, it was with coordination with staff and what they were hearing was coming online and that sort of thing.
Jump in for 1 second on that.
Okay.
I know when we were looking at what densities to plug in there, when we say higher density, it's really not high density, it's more of a medium density number. So something in that 3 to 5 units per acre to fit with our medium density land use categories, what that was.
Yes, my apologies. I mean higher density than what was in scenario 1. So not necessarily high density residential or anything like that. So, okay. Okay.
So scenario 1 considered medium density according to her numbers? Is that what I'm hearing, or is that right?
Let me pull up. I can pull up the, I don't know how to get out of this, though.
Some low and medium, I believe, in that one, and then maybe closer to 5 units per acre in the other one. But it did vary. Like, we looked at each project and said, let's imagine 3 units per acre on this one, maybe 5 on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, again, the blue areas are what will be developed within the 10 years, and the text boxes describe or list the various assumptions. Are you able to see that, or do you want me to zoom in?
What page is that?
That's the 44, so that's for our scenario 1. So there's some medium density residential. We did account for the town facilities that are expected. And medium density, the rest was medium density residential. And then when we jump to scenario 2, we have medium density, high density residential, and that's near that expected town hall facility. Some more medium density, and then we also included some general retail and some other retail further to the south.
Do you consider different use? For example, a retirement community probably has less cars than.
Definitely has less, yes, yeah.
So is that factored in here in any way, what type of use it would be?
The standard for medium density would be single family homes, yeah.
So some factor below that would be a retirement community?
Yes, much less.
Much less.
Much less, yeah.
Much less.
Yep. And that actually leads to the next, let me get back to this.
That's how you got to, you said 12 was a bigger contribution, because that was one that changed between the two as well, right? That's what you're saying, that like, that's why you said 12, you highlighted a couple key ones.
12 was a big contributor in both scenarios, yep. Okay. How do I start off? What?
Down there.
I'm so bad with technology.
The little screen.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we talked about that example at Rolesville High School, so you could kind of quantify the impact of the denser development. The other way that we can use this study as a tool is the analysis can be periodically updated to reflect rezoning decisions that y'all make, or proposed rezoning cases, so that we can see what those decisions, what impact that has on the improvements that we're recommending. So if a senior housing development comes in instead of what we've assumed medium density residential to be, we can plug that in, see how it impacts things. And the next step recommendation we had, and Lisa also touched on this a bit, is a Main Street at Young Street area plan. So as Lisa discussed, this intersection is a critical intersection, both because of the high volume demand, but because there's a lot of constructability constraints here. We know that right-of-way is tight. There's buildings right up close to the existing roadway. And there's an opportunity to, for the town to ensure the proper right-of-way is dedicated through redevelopment plans. The problem is we don't know when redevelopment is going to be proposed around this intersection. So we do recommend further evaluation of this area, both from a macro level and a micro level. So to give you an example, a CTP analysis is a macro analysis of an area. It's overall big picture, looking at origin, destination, but the corridor study is a micro analysis. We are looking at very finite study area, honing in on intersections and that sort of thing. So we would highly recommend an area plan that would look at all these factors. For example, a constraint that we had, we were aware of the connection through the Scarborough property that you mentioned early on. That kind of connection will provide relief at the intersection with Main Street. However, we also would need to look at where that connector road then ties back into Main Street. Is there capacity there to accommodate the traffic that you're taking off our corridor to go that way? And we were limited, again, looking at our corridor, so we didn't know the capacity at these other connection pieces of what could go that way. So we would recommend an area plan to look at the surrounding connector options that Lisa touched on, and just look at it from, again, both that macro level and the micro level to give you some guidance for reprioritization of those connector roads.
So, let me make sure I hear you. So we did a plan in 21. So that needs to be redone, basically?
No, this is just looking at right around Main Street and Young Street. And being able to look at, it's almost combining both of those types of studies. So you want to look at traffic diversions and just additional connector pieces that can help take traffic off of that intersection.
So in a perfect world, that should have been done before our Main Street project?
The Main Street project, well, this is more for 2033 though, so you're planning, yeah.
Probably should have been done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pinch point. You know, everyone is going from this corridor, not everyone, but the majority of traffic is going from this corridor to the west.
Yeah, I thought, and I may have misread it in there. I almost thought you was kind of saying that we need to look at ways to get traffic out of that intersection by other means, by other.
Multi-modes type of thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Less of a better term, a different bypass or something.
Yes, yeah, well, connector roads or loop roads, just other alternatives so they're not all going right to the intersection.
Right.
You'll still have some people that use it, but making alternative routes desirable will take the heat off of that intersection.
I always thought the Granite Falls Boulevard connection would help some. but
Yep, and
maybe-
that's one of the ones that we identified will help. And I think that one was a near-term priority, so that's good news. But some of the other east-west connectors
and I
were
thi-
not near-term.
I think it'd be a good idea if we could some way get a truck route, that trucks doesn't have to go through that intersection.
'Cause those
And I know
turns-
some towns do that, they have a truck route that, bypasses downtown.
Yeah.
But that would be good too, I don't know if that's part of your thinking or not. but-
Yeah, I mean, we didn't look at we have the truck percentage information, so we can share that in terms of what kind of demand is there for the trucks right now.
That was the purpose of 98.
Mm-hmm,
A couple of years ago, I think it was talked about.
okay. Yeah, I think, signage for that kind of thing is helpful, to direct trucks, but. And that is it. Thank you for sticking here with us to get through all this.
On your last slide.
Oh.
What what opportunities, in your experience, are there to take this plan to DOT and Campo and start talking about STIP or spot? How does that work? So are we getting to a point now where we can promote a couple of these and start saying, these are our priority areas, and then start working with DOT to bring these forward to Campo and start funding some of these improvements besides developer and town resources?
I'll let you speak a little bit to that process.
Yeah, a good next step would also be submitting this study to NCDOT for their review. I don't believe this corridor is on their radar yet for improvements.
Right.
But this is a good first step into getting NCDOT on board
And then you start working with them to see if we can get something out of that to leverage to go to Campo, and does that make the list? Is that how it works essentially?
Yeah, so basically you have to, there's like different criteria
Right.
that you want to hit. So like by having a plan here, now this is at the intersection, so this is
Right.
looking at that, you would figuring out what your project's gonna be. And so this does give you, here's some costs we have for the intersection. Again, the intersection also is including that ultimate wider footprint. So we're assuming that's kind of in play, but we're getting from existing to that. And so by having plans that say, here's the needs, here's what we're seeing, here's what we're predicting, gives you a couple more checks in that box of making you a higher priority to get in there. So,
It feels like we should start to understand that process as it relates to this and how we can help with DOT make some prioritization of what we need to get accomplished while leveraging state and federal funds also potentially.
yeah, and you'll typically have to have a match. Things are more attractive when you're willing
Right.
to give a higher percentage and things.
Right.
So getting yourself organized with what you can do, taking things like this to help get you geared up for that.
Correct.
And I do a lot of pedestrian pieces, so I know there's lots of those projects. I'm very involved with what's needed. I'm not as involved with that, but there are the same criteria of who are you impacting, how big of an area, how does that play in? All those things contribute to getting you.
So one of the next steps would be to get this to DOT minimally.
Yeah.
And then present it and then start having that engagement with them.
Yeah, let them know what you're seeing, what traffic volumes are.
Right.
Yeah. So is it safe to say, if you look at your study, all inclusive, as long as we avoid high-density developments, some of the lower scenarios work better? Is that kind of what I take from what you're saying there? In other words, if we keep our density medium to low, then we have less problems of having to
And that's
deal.
probably a shorter term. I mean, yes, and that's what you all, if that's the growth you want and different things. So it's a balancing act for sure of how, but less demands for the road by having lower density means less roadway improvements are required. So that is more that alternative one.
Yeah, that's more looking at that alternative one, the results there. Even in that, though, there was the recommendation to widen the corridor between Main and 401 bypass. That was still needed for that. And we didn't do the...
Actually, from Maine to high school, is that right?
For alternative one, it was just to the bypass,
Just that,
but for the
and
other two, it
picked up
was...
to high school.
Yep. And again, the conceptual designs and the costs were just done for alternative 3, so it's a little harder for us to look at those right-of-way impacts based on what's in the study.
So every developer who's hearing you say that is like, no, we're coming back with medium or high.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing with us. So like, we wanted this study to make sure we haven't overloaded this road already. So in your opinion right now, with everything you've studied and everything else, have we overloaded the road already, or?
There is an existing analysis that we did as well.
All right.
Let's see. They were actually at the end of that PowerPoint, weren't they? The level of service tables?
Yes.
Okay, so I can pull those up real quick just so you can have, and these are in your report as well. So if you look at the existing level of service, here we are at NC 98, and we're at a B and a C, which is which is pretty darn good.
Okay.
I'd like to get those in all my traffic studies. Jones Dairy, it's currently unsignalized, so it's a little bit harder of a comparison because of the signal recommendation, but eastbound approach still level service C, which is really good for an unsignalized stop control approach.
Okay.
Main Street is level service C, really good. This is the, we have to model it as two separate intersections, one for each approach at the 401 bypass intersection, but all of those are operating very well. So your Rolesville High School is a problem today, but that shouldn't be too much of a surprise there. And Mitchell Mill is operating well. So it's good right now.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things where we can't, we have a developer come in and they're like, oh, we want to add like 600 houses here. Like, I just want to make sure that, like on this study, we're showing we're okay right now, but we need to make changes to this. But like, we already are like already overloaded and we're trying to add more onto it. I just want to make sure we're balancing that with.
Yeah, and we all know the traffic study will isolate the impact of that said development. This is more of a broad outlook 10 years from now, not that short 5-year build out that you might see with the TIA.
Okay.
Yeah, you said, for example, a high school is a problem today, but I know if you go out there, they're doing construction work, adding lanes and stuff. Are you speaking as it is designed today for future or as it is actual today?
As it operates today. So when we went out there and took the traffic counts in April of this year, there's almost a 200-second delay in the morning.
So the improvements probably is going to help.
Yeah.
Get that number up better.
We would hope so.
But we still need a traffic signal there.
Yes.
So where's Wake County Schools at? No.
Actually, it's DOT.
Wow.
And that's going to happen. Well, not
Right, at the high school, right.
Well, so back to the study that is not complete, quote unquote, for the high school. The actual result was the recommendation from the DOT consultant said that back lot needs to be free flowing. There needs to be connectivity in the back lot. And then when that was revealed and discussed, and the school district said, as I mentioned previously, that they didn't have money and what you all want to do about it, the town, the conversation stopped, right? I mean, that was the result of that meeting, but for the red and that yellow, there's that block, and the consultant for DOT said, open that back area up so it flows up the quarry.
Well, it seems like every other school has that. I mean, they have gates there, but it is connected where you could open and use, but ours for some reason isn't.
Right.
That was a complaint from day one.
Where is it connected? Over here?
Yeah, in the back of the school.
But did they want this to just be a straight shot?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what the consultant says should happen so things can flow better.
You do know they got plans for another school out there, right?
They mentioned that too. Yeah.
The timing with that, we did not include this because they thought the earliest would be 10 years from
Right.
now. So
10
that,
years.
Yeah, so that was not included in our projections, the additional
That's
school.
probably right.
And maybe I missed that part when the money part came up. I don't know. Were they gonna get back to you on that?
No, the school district said if it's a town issue, correct? If it's a town issue, they will listen to us coming to them, how we can assist them break and connect that.
So, never mind.
But they did not they said they will not lead that effort. If we want to help and make an improvement and help fund that, they will listen then.
I mean, it only makes sense because it goes out to a signalized section or
right.
intersection out there. So I
Quarry,
mean,
quarry
yeah,
goes out to quarry.
right.
It's just a bad design.
Hmm?
It's just a bad design from day one.
Yeah. I don't know why it was that way. So I mean, I think, if we think it can make some improvements, I think we can go go talk to the school district and start talking about that as something we want to help continue facilitating. But the discussion stopped right there at the end of that conversation.
It's really not that much land. Get a couple parents with a couple sledgehammers, bust up that sidewalk.
And they had roadway improvements with their study as well.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, we
Yeah.
haven't seen the results of those, but just curious what they look like compared to what was recommended.
Yeah, they presented and they took them away.
Okay.
So somewhere we could find it from DOT, but I have not seen it either.
I gotta tell you something, you all did a fabulous job.
Yep.
That was a lot of data, a lot of everything. That would have made me just want to throw everything down and go shopping out of frustration. I am so impressed, and thank you for bringing that clarity to us, because it was a big concern for me with all the reports that kept coming in. And none of them were seeing, like I said to you earlier, they didn't seem like any one of them was impacting the next one. Like, this has gotta be, like, too much. But, you laid it out really nice, and it was much better. I think Angelina said it, I'm not sure. Hearing you explain it versus this.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
It was a lot, just tying it all together, so now we have a look and understand where we stand instead of all of this. So I'm very appreciative.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity, and just a side note for me, it's been really neat to work in my own town, so I'm really glad to be here.
Good enough. I think Meredith wants to kind of wrap it up maybe
Yeah.
and talk about what she intends to do with the study
Right
now.
ahead, Meredith. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hold on, I'll let you answer. I'll ask the question just a minute if you, hold on, George. Yeah, I'll let you do it. Yeah, we'll do it.
So the intent when we started this study was to take the product and integrate it into our community transportation plan. I've been speaking with our town attorney about what process we need to follow to do that. But as a next step, we'd like to take the study to the planning board and share it with them, and then figure out that process to integrate it, amend it to our community transportation plan.
Yeah, I think one thing I kind of read into what they were saying. I would like for us to figure out how do we get traffic out of downtown rather than just making it attractive, get more traffic down there. We got to figure out how to move it around to go somewhere else. And I think we had a lot of things that, maybe that extensions and stuff will work with the Bowlers and all that kind of thing. We just need to figure out how to. The future's not all that traffic going through downtown, I don't think.
Assist us with looking at our land use map as well.
Yes, great point.
And we do that this year.
We're going to get started very soon.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. George, come on up. Come on up, George. I'm going to allow you to ask a question, being that I know one of them intersections is close to where you live, so.
Well, it's not necessarily a discrete question to that intersection. It's a general engineering question. What model was used for you all to make the assumptions? I'm sure that you had a database that you build up some from-tos based on the suspected or projected loads. Scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. What model was used for that?
So we took into account existing traffic volume.
Yeah, the numerical model that you all use to define. You had a computer model.
The capacity analysis model.
Excuse me,
Huh?
Ms. Chase, can you come up to the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The capacity analysis model software that we use is Synchro. It's called
Okay.
Synchro.
Okay, and then when you were doing, you have to generate a database to upload to that from twos based on the projected loads that you would
The
see.
volumes.
Volumes, if you will. I know it is from two, so I apologize. But when you did that, you assumed certain developments,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
And what was the criteria used to define, what was going to be developed, and And what load would be derived from that?
So existing volumes are the base. We used all the approved developments that were available at the time
At
we
the
started
time.
the study.
Okay.
And then again, on that map that was shown, the blue parcels, we assumed development land uses for those parcels.
Let's just project the pie in the sky for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it was based on the future land use map and also, again, staff input on
Yeah.
what they're seeing the trends being
Yeah.
for submittals.
But some of them are not even planned at this time. It's just up.
That's correct. They were assumptions. You're right.
Assumptions.
Yep,
Okay.
you're right. You're right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and that translates to the load on the road
Yes,
and the impact on right-of-ways.
yes, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you. I think that includes the business we have tonight, unless someone has something to add. I'll start with the attorney. Anything you have to add tonight?
Just as a clarification item, with regard to the study, if we were to incorporate it into our plan, or if it were to stand alone as its own plan, there's a statute that speaks to that. But it is a study. So from that study, you could make a new plan, taking the parts of it that you do like, and perhaps leaving behind others or adding to it and incorporating that in. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, as it is a study. It's a tool into itself. Just a clarification, because you could imagine if you just stuck the study onto the current plan, you would have it saying two different things in two different locations. Okay,
Be a little confusing, wouldn't it?
more confusing than a CTP already is, yes.
It's a great guide, though.
Yeah, and I think, when is a comprehensive plan supposed to be done? Is that coming up this year?
We hope to get the request for qualifications for a consultant out towards the end of this year and start the project the beginning of next year.
Mm-hmm. That's where we need to make decisions on what the road need to support the comprehensive plan, I think.
Correct. So we have a comprehensive plan, which is required by the statute, and then various other plans, including the comprehensive transportation plan, which, for reasons lost to history, are often not the comprehensive plan. It's a separate thing, but again, is authorized by statute that we can use to drive development where we want it to be.
Yeah, and we just need to have confidence the two works together. I think that's where the board hadn't had confidence that the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan would support the comprehensive plan. And
Correct.
we need to make sure they work together.
That's exactly right.
Great job. Appreciate it. Thank you. Kelly, anything from?
I have nothing to add.
All right, anything from the board? Okay.
So October 21st, this Saturday, we're going to be planting our second pollinator garden. That's going to Rolesville Park, Redford Place Park. And October 28th, we want to see everybody out at the Fall Fest. And that's out at the same ball fields as well. So just a plug for that. Everybody come out, enjoy it, good time, and a lot of vendors and everything else. So.
Yeah, the Fall Fest usually have a big turnout, so
Yep.
good plug there. Is it from 11 to 5 or?
It is.
11 to 5. So turnout for that, I think, what's our prediction on that? 5,000?
You asked the event coordinator, she didn't even guess.
But yeah, that's a good plug there, Paul.
We also have the unveiling of the murals during Fall Fun Fest as well. So look for those as well. There's 3 of those. So,
I saw he started out here.
yep,
Yeah, that's
So-
exciting.
yep, they're all set. Yeah, we're all done, yep.
All right, I have a quick question, Kelly. All right, thank you. Just a thought, we can talk about it tomorrow. Because, you know, neighborhoods are still asking about the speed bumps, and I know Rodney Crippen and I had a great conversation more than once about that, and he even did gave us a report at the villages, and I think it still stands. But something that one of the citizens said to me was, instead of the speed bump, is it possible to put the little lines, the little caution lines, like crosswalk, painted crosswalk lines? You know, can we
Yes.
consider that? Because you don't have to put the speed bump, but if you have the lines, so people can walk across and stop playing
Right.
chicken when they're going.
A crosswalk.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so,
It is, and I think you've asked about looking at Redford,
yes,
at the
at the roundabout.
traffic circle.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so,
Yeah, those are, they're effective for pedestrian crossing. They're not really effective for traffic slowing down, other than a safety zone. They're supposed to be intended for a safety area for a pedestrian to cross. And so,
yeah, because we're hoping that when people see it, they will
Mm.
realize that this is like a, I don't know if it's official or unofficial crossing zone
right.
versus like, you know, running across the street and dodging cars. So just something to see if that works. And really, I would also say that there's an HOA over in the neighborhood I talked about, so maybe the cost can be, you know, figure out a cost between town and HOA.
I think, quite frankly, we kind of need to look at the whole issue. I mean, it's been something that's been kind of out there. It keeps on circulating every 3 months. Yeah. And I think it'd be a good topic to talk about in 2024. What do you want to do with all the various opportunities or not? We've taken a very solid position in this community of how we don't endorse traffic calming necessarily. And that still may be a very acceptable answer, but I think it'd be good for us to study that and talk about that as a group and see what you all think.
So I just want to say thank you to my neighbor Brian, because I told him I'm going to take credit for suggesting it, and I was only kidding. So, thank you, Brian, for the suggestion.
Okay, anything else? If I don't hear opposition, I'm going to adjourn this work session. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming.